Hello, and welcome to Everyone Dies. This week, we're talking about how to ground yourself. Thank you for listening to our podcast about serious illness, dying, death, and bereavement. I'm Marianne Matzo, a nurse practitioner. I used my experience from working as a nurse for 47 years to help answer your questions about what happens at the end of life. Our main topic is in the second half, so you can just fast forward to that if you want to get right to this week's topic.
And I'm Charlie Navarrete, an actor in New York City, and here to offer an every-person viewpoint to our podcast. We're both here because we believe that the more you know, the better prepared you are to make difficult health decisions. Also, this podcast does not provide medical nor legal advice. Please listen to the complete disclosure at the end of the recording.
In the first half, Charlie has our recipe of the week and a story about coffin races in Colorado. In the second half, I'll be talking about grounding exercises. And in our third half, Charlie has a story about Mary Jane Rathbun, the medical marijuana activist who baked hundreds of pot brownies for AIDS patients. So how are you?
Fine. What, Marianne?
Have you seen the film Running on Empty?
I know I have.
No, this is about knowing there's this technology that well, in the movie, anyway, that you can go and find out the day you're going to die. And that's barring, getting shot or, an unforeseen kind of accident and things like that, but just based on your biology. So this guy runs or works in his family's funeral home business and who has started this niche funeral home, I forget how they put it, but it's sort of like adventure funerals, so that if you died in an adventurous way, they restage your death. So they have like this guy sitting at a card table, playing poker, and there's this guy who died like skydiving, and they're hanging from the thing. Anyway, so the story is really about this young man who's in his 20s, I guess, who finds out within a year he's going to be dead. And he still eats the low-fat pudding, and, he doesn't really live at all, of course, until he meets a woman. But the story was really kind of interesting in the premise of if you knew for sure that you were going to die in a year, like what's on your list, and would you in fact go do it?
Who's in it?
Oh, the only person who I recognized was like Nick Gafalakis. I don't know how to say his name,
but I just can't. I'll look it up after the.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes if anybody wants to see it. I thought it was, it wasn't a waste of an hour and a half. So there's that.
Do you remember a film called Defending Your Life?
Seems like I've know the title of it. Have you talked about it before?
Basically, the premise is you are about to die and you have to basically defend whether this is your time now to die, or do you deserve to stay on Earth a little bit longer? Brooks, hang on a second. Albert Brooks. So he wrote it, and
I was going to say it sounds right up his alley, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And what's that called again?
Yeah, Albert Brooks, Defending Your Life. It's really smart. It's humorous. I really recommend it. Very, very good.
Good. We'll have to check that out.
So, in our first half, Everyone Dies travels to Colorado this week, almost in time for their annual coffin race. You see, the story dates back to 19th century Colorado and the people who moved there for the fresh mountain air and natural mineral springs in hopes of curing their tuberculosis. One such family was the Crawfords, who brought their 7-year-old daughter Emma to Manitou Springs seeking the cure. Emma Crawford lived long enough to dazzle listeners with her piano playing and to get engaged. She was even well enough at one point to climb to the top of Red Mountain, a spot she later requests to be buried at out of fear of the horror of cemeteries, formalities, and anything low or gloomy, and even death. She died from tuberculosis in the winter of 1891, and a group of 12 pallbearers carried her casket to the top of Red Mountain and buried her. But the story does not end there. Nearly 40 years later, two local boys discovered a human skull on the side of Red Mountain, and Crawford's coffin and other body parts were soon discovered. Some say a severe rainstorm washed up the coffin and sent it tumbling down the mountain. A memorial stone now marks the spot where Crawford was originally buried, but her remains now rest in an unmarked grave. But wait, there's more. The city of Manitou Springs now holds coffin races and the festival in honor of what happened to Emma Crawford's coffin. Each team at the Emma Crawford Coffin Races is composed of one Emma and four runners, all dressed in costumes. The fastest times to finish the 195-yard track along Manitou Mountain will earn trophies. Other special awards will be up for grabs as well, such as Best Entourage, Best Coffin, Best Emma, and Miss Emma. This might seem to be a pretty bizarre way to honor a dead girl, but we're talking Colorado here. It goes without saying that it is no wonder her ghost is still said to haunt the town where she died. And when it comes to food, Colorado didn't invent granola, but it did help drive granola to where it's at today. With demand from endurance athletes and campers at such a high level in the Centennial State, you can bet the granola found here will be top-notch. Our recipe for Colorado granola can be baked into bars or used as a topping for peach strudel and taken to your next funeral lunch. Bon appetit! Please go to our webpage for this week's recipe for Colorado granola and additional resources for this program. This is the part where we ask you for your financial support. Your tax-deductible gift will go directly to supporting our nonprofit journalism so that we can remain accessible to everyone. You can donate at www.everyonedies.org. That's every, the number one, dies.org, or at our site on Patreon under Everyone Dies. Marianne?
Thanks, Charlie. Last week, we were talking with Phil Cohen, and he mentioned that grief impacts the body, mind, and spirit, and that there are different exercises to support healing. He talked about grounding exercises, journaling, and physical exercise. I realized then that we hadn't had a show about grounding techniques specifically, so let's talk about that today. Grounding techniques are a set of simple strategies to detach yourself from emotional pain. For example, feelings of panic, self-harm impulses, anger, rage, grief, and intense sadness. You can also think of grounding as entering or finding a safe place or a healthy detachment or a form of distraction from difficult emotions. When you're overwhelmed with a significant emotion, you need a way to detach so that you can gain some control over your feelings and stay safe. Grounding anchors you to the present and to reality and puts a healthy distance between you and your pain. Grounding does not stop you from feeling the emotion, but it helps to decrease the intensity of the emotion so that you're able to more effectively cope with the situation that prompted the emotion. Grounding can be done at any time, anywhere, and no one has to know. It's like Kegel exercises for your emotions. They help make you stronger, keeps your emotions from sloshing out of your body, and no one is any the wiser. You can use grounding when you are faced with intense, painful memories, panic attacks, thoughts about self-harm, or any time your emotional pain is high. Rate your mood before and after trying a technique to help you determine if it's a technique that's working for you. Like rate your emotional pain on a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 being no pain and 10 being extreme pain. Try each technique several times before you decide that it doesn't work. It may take your mind, body a few times to recognize what the technique is doing before you're able to recognize that it is helping you. Grounding is really about taking a break from negative feelings, not trying to get in touch with them. This means no journaling or talking about negative feelings right now. You can journal or talk through the situation after you've calmed yourself. So when you're doing grounding exercises, you want to focus on the present, not the past, not the future. Stay neutral. No judgments of good or bad. For example, don't say to yourself, the walls are yellow and I don't like yellow and it makes me depressed. Instead, leave it as, the walls are yellow. Grounding is not the same as relaxation training. Grounding is more active, focusing on distraction and intended to help reduce extreme feelings. Grounding exercises can be broken down into 3 categories: mental, physical, and soothing grounding. I have links in the show notes to help you remember the different exercises for each of these categories. So first, mental grounding stimulates your brain by giving it something else to do rather than focusing on your anxiety or grief. Some mental grounding exercises are: first, you could describe your environment in detail using all of your senses. Describe objects, shapes, colors, textures, smells, sounds, numbers, and temperature. If you're around other people, you can do this silently in your head, so again, no one has to know. Another way is play a categories game with yourself. Try to think of types of dogs, names of musicians, states that begin with an A, cars, TV shows, European cities, whatever. Describe an everyday activity in detail. Think of a hobby or something you like to do and describe how to do it in as much detail as possible. For example, describe each step of making a hot fudge sundae. First, I buy my favorite ice cream bowl. I get the vanilla bean ice cream out of the freezer. Find the Saunders hot fudge sauce in the cupboard. Take off the cover, warm it in the microwave, etc. Just break down that task into every single piece, and your focus comes off of your anxiety or your grief and on what you're describing, and it can help calm you. Another is to imagine, visualize. Think of yourself gliding away from your emotion on skates. Think of your painful situation as a TV show and mentally change the channel. Think of there being a wall between you and your pain. Try a safety statement. Say, I'm safe right now. I'm in the present, not the past. Today's date is this, and I am located wherever you are. Count backwards from 100, or say the alphabet, but do it really slowly. Repeat a favorite saying to yourself over and over, any quote or saying that is calming or reassuring to you. The second type of grounding is physical grounding, which is where your brain will focus on the physical sensations instead of intense emotions. For example, run cool water over your hands. Use body sensations, tap on your chest, rub your legs, hold ice in your hand. Lightly snap a rubber band or something on your wrist. Grab the arms of your chair as tightly as you can and then relax and let go. Touch objects around you, a pen, your clothing, a table, a wall. Notice textures, material, weight, temperature. Compare objects to one another. Is one smoother, rounder, rougher? Dig your heels into the floor, literally grounding them. Notice the tension in the heels as you do this and remind yourself that you are connected to the ground. Carry a grounding object in your pocket. A small object, a rock, a ring, a piece of cloth, a yarn. And you can touch it anytime that you feel triggered. Jump up and down. Notice your body. Wiggle your toes in your socks. Feel your back against the chair. Remind yourself that you are connected to the world. Stretch. Extend your fingers, arms, and legs as far as you can. Roll your head in a circle. Walk slowly, noticing each footstep. Say left, right with each step. Eat something. Describe the flavors to yourself as in much detail as you can. Focus on your breathing. Notice each inhale and exhale. Repeat a pleasant word to yourself on each inhale. For example, a soothing word like safe or easy or favorite color. Breathe in for 4 counts and out for 4 counts. The last set of grounding exercises are called soothing grounding. Think of favorites, favorite color, animal, season, time of day, song, movie. Picture people you care about. Look at photographs of them if you can. Say kind statements. Talk to yourself as if you were a child, like, you're a good person. You will get through this. Remember the words to an inspiring song, quote, or poem that makes you feel better. Think of a safe place. Describe a place you find very soothing. Focus on every detail about that place. Sounds, colors, shapes, objects, textures, smell. Say coping statements like, I will get through this, or this feeling will pass. Plan a safe treat for yourself, such as a nice dinner, a warm bath, doing your nails. Think of something you're looking forward to in the next week, perhaps spending time with a close friend, seeing a new movie, etc. You may be thinking these exercises are silly or wondering what you will do if they don't work. First, practice them when you're not feeling anxious or sad, or as often as possible, even if you think you don't need to do it. Practice faster. Speed up the pace to get you focused on the world outside your head quickly. Try it for a long time, 20 to 30 minutes, and repeat, repeat, repeat. Notice whether you feel better with physical or mental grounding. You can create your own methods. A method you make up on your own may be worth much more than these examples because it's yours. Sometimes we just don't have the energy to think up one ourselves, or you can take an existing one and make some changes to it. Start grounding early, as soon as you recognize the beginning of a strong emotion, a negative mood, or a difficult memory. Nip the spiral that came with the grief or anxiety before it takes over your day. Charlie, do you ever do any grounding exercises?
Yes. But my approach to it is a little different. I have, I think I'm sure I've mentioned before this phrase, follow your bliss. It's from philosopher Joseph Campbell. And it's basically with that, you just do something just for the sake of doing it. That just the work, what you, as you were describing, just the work itself is its own reward. I know you are big into gardening, and yeah, it's just that. I mean, the when they were coming out regularly, the Jack Reacher books. I mean, you, David, and I, really like those. I would just have great pleasure just sitting on the subway reading these things on the subway and just and sometimes I would lose, it's like, oh yeah, I should have gotten off the train 3 stops before. Yeah, it's just that. Recently, I've been working with it's called the Society for Ethical Culture. It's an organization that's been around for 150 years in Manhattan, working on their archives, um, which have not been taken care of for, I mean, literally 100 years. So, I mean, I come across these documents that are, over 100 years old. Um, it's just, yeah, it's just amazing what I hold in my hands sometimes. Yeah, it's just, just I get lost in the pleasure of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes too, yeah, there are physical things. I go out for a walk and then I find myself just looking up at old buildings, at architecture. I've been here now for decades in New York, but still, gawking at the top of some old building that I'd never noticed before, though I've walked down that avenue many times. Yeah, it's just you just get lost in that moment, and
Mm.
yeah, nothing else matters. I really enjoy that, and yeah, and it could be something you are very, very conscious of doing. But I just the whole notion of follow your bliss. I just do it now without thinking. But I do remember at the beginning, as you're saying, I really had to make a concerted effort to not get caught up, because some audition did not go well, or I lost a part. It was okay. And it was like, yeah, and eventually the thought that would come into my mind is, yes, you didn't get the part, but you didn't get the part in New York City, and you were called back maybe two or three times, but you were called back. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just it was not a one and done thing. So for our third half, Mary Jane Rathbun was always a rule breaker. As a child attending a Catholic school, she fought back against a nun who was trying to beat her, which I promise you was not done. In the 1980s, in her late 50s, she was living in San Francisco, which at the time was the epicenter of the AIDS epidemic. While working at the International House of Pancakes, IHOP, she happened to meet Dennis Perrone, a San Francisco cannabis activist. After this meeting, Rathbun began a secondary gig, selling marijuana brownies. Soon she was baking hundreds of cannabis infused brownies a day. She advertised them on bulletin boards as magically delicious brownies. Known as Brownie Mary, Mary Jane Rathbun defied the law to bring cannabis brownies to AIDS patients in San Francisco because of how marijuana could ease their symptoms. She eventually caught the eye of authorities on January 17, 1981. Police came to her home, found more than 600 of her magic brownies, and arrested the 57-year-old. In 1982, she was arrested for the second time while carrying marijuana brownies for a friend with cancer at San Francisco General Hospital. Rathbun had noticed that the marijuana helped people living with AIDS and cancer with side effects like pain and nausea, and she set out to bake a truly impressive number of brownies each month. While most of her baking supplies were financed by her $650 Social Security check, people across the city also donated their cannabis. Brownie Mary was providing marijuana brownies to terminally ill AIDS patients in San Francisco General Hospital, so it was an act of mercy, Rathbun's attorney J. Tony Serra recalled. Only her humanitarian conscience guided her. She never made a penny on it, and she exposed herself to the full fury of the law. She couldn't have lasted long in the state penitentiary, so she was very brave. Ever the shy child who grew up in a strict Irish Catholic home, she had this to say at a rally in 1992. If the narcs think I'm going to stop baking brownie for my kids with AIDS, they can go F themselves in Macy's window. She died of a heart attack on April 10, 1999, at 76 years of age. 7 days later, a crowd of over 300 people held a candlelight vigil in her honor in the Castro neighborhood, where her legacy began. They called her Florence Nightingale of the medical marijuana movement, in honor of her contributions to the city of San Francisco and the impact on the medical marijuana movement in the United States. Her brownie recipe, however, remains a secret to this day.
I wanted that recipe.
Yeah. And you know what, Marianne? This is the thing. I mean, you and I remember with marijuana slowly very slowly becoming, part of everyday life. It was, yeah, you could go to jail. You would be denounced. It was really tough for people to, just take marijuana. And yeah, some people just, took it just to get high. But like in this case, and now it's over the counter in many places. It was, if you were in pain, not just AIDS, but if you were just in pain, it would just help your pain, to control your pain. Yeah, and
I remember
yeah, what?
my first year of nursing school. Oh, no, my first year out of nursing school, I had a young guy with terminal cancer, and the meds that we were giving him were not helpful. We're not treating his nausea and his pain. And his dad went out on the streets of Detroit and bought a dime bag for him, which was an ounce of marijuana for $10. That's what a dime bag was. And brought it into the hospital. And he said, I got this for my son, but now I don't know what to do with it. And it was like, well, because as nurses, we weren't, that was an illegal substance,
right,
and
right.
We weren't supposed to be involved in that at all. So, I figured out how to roll a joint and showed him how to do that, and so that he could, have that for his son. And I think, didn't that girl that you took care of on the iron lung, didn't she smoke marijuana too?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. It's still outlawed in a lot of states, right? Is it outlawed or just very strictly regulated? Or
no, so there's like two categories. There's legalization for medical purposes, which there's more states, but not all states, where the person who's buying it has to have a medical reason and a medical card, and you have to go to a medical dispensary in order to get it. And then there are some states where it's legal for recreational use, so you don't need to have a medical card in order to buy it. And then there's other states where it's totally illegal for anything.
And with that, this ends this week's episode. Please stay tuned for the continuing saga of Everyone Dies, and thank you for listening. This is Charlie Navarrete. And from the original Florence Nightingale, rather 10 times die in the surf, heralding the way to a new world, than stand idly on the shore.
And I'm Marianne Matzo, and we'll see you next week. Remember, every day is a gift.
This podcast does not provide medical advice. All discussion on this podcast, such as treatments, dosages, outcomes, charts, patient profiles, advice, messages, and any other discussion are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your primary care practitioner or other qualified health providers with any questions that you may have regarding your health. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard from this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Everyone Dies does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, practitioners, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in this podcast. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast by persons appearing on this podcast at the invitation of Everyone Dies or by other members is solely at your own risk.